Hi guys, good morning. So welcome to our class, the Cookery NC2. This is Teacher Jam, Lokbanin Buslog. Okay guys, we are now at the Cookery NC2 Module 4, Part 2, Prepare and Cook Starch and Cereal Dishes. So what we're going to discuss for today is about the prepare starch and cereal dishes, present and store starch and cereal dishes. Okay guys, are you ready to listen now? Okay, so let us now go on to our discussion for today. So for our discussion about the learning outcome number 2, they prepare starch and cereal dishes. So one of the properties of starch is viscosity, which is the resistance to flow of starch and modified starch paste. In the preparation of cooking of starch and cereal dishes, factors affecting starch paste viscosity and starch gel strength should be considered. So what are the factors affecting the starch paste viscosity and starch gel strength? So we have number 1, the stress or other factors, stirring amount and type, the kind and amount of starch, heating rate, the endpoint temperature, cooling and storage conditions, and ingredients added. So these are the factors that affect starch paste viscosity and starch gel strength. So we have now the common problems in starch cookery. So we have thinning of gel. So this problem is usually encountered when using acid or acid ingredients such as lemon or vinegar. So nagkakaroon ng thinning. Ano po? Yan, nagninipis because of the acid. Weak gel. So bakit nagiging weak? Because the result if there is a too much liquid in relation to the starch. So kapag masyadong madaming liquid ang inilalagay natin, so nagigipong weak ang ating gel. Skin formulation is due to loss of water from the starch and protein and molecules near the surface of the mixture. Scorching. So this can be avoided by the temperature control and constant stirring so that starch granules do not settle at the bottom of the cooking pan. And we have the raw starch flavor. So this is due to ungelatinized starch. So hindi nag-gelatinize yung starch nyo. We have now the different types of pasta. So kung makikita nyo sa ating screen, we have samples of pasta. So may makikita kayong spaghetti, asinid de pepe, manicotti, campanelle, gemelli, ravioli, angel hair, lasagna, riccoli, or riccioli, and etc. So napakadami pong klase ng ating pasta. Okay. So we have the basic principles in preparing pasta. So we have the pasta shapes. So ito po ay yung mga maraming shapes and sizes of pasta. With each shape has a use for different preparations based on how the use will cling. So it depends po kung paano natin, saan ba natin gagamitin yung pastang ito. Ano po? So the texture desired and or how the product will be used. So example, pasta shape with hole or ridges such as the wagon wheels or rotini are perfect for chunkier sauces. Thin, delicate pasta such as angel hair, vermicelli are better served with light thin sauces. So very light thin sauces lang po. Kasi po, yung ating angel hair and the vermicelli is very thin, very fine talaga sila. So that's why dapat po ang sauces nila is very thin din or light. Thicker pasta shapes. So itong mga thicker pasta shapes, ito makakapal na siya, such as the fettuccine. This works well with the heavier sauces. So pag thicker pasta, makapal o ibig sabihin mabigat siya, so dapat po ay ang sauce mo din is heavy. So we have the very small pasta shapes like the alphabet shape, the acini di pepe or akini di pepe are goods for soup. So they're good for soups. So how about the cooking time depends on the shape? Yes, depende po sa shapes ang ng pasta at dumedepende rin po siya in the cooking time. So because it is important to be familiar with the different shapes of pasta, so cooking times can be adjusted. So the larger, the fuller the pasta shapes, the longer the cooking time. Most pasta recipes specify cooking times for pasta cook al dente, tender but firm. So that is the al dente, tender but firm. Risk in the preparation and cooking of starch and cereal dishes and other food. So we had the food handlers, the kitchen facilities, the food selection and preparation, and the safe temperatures. So yan po yung mga risk in the preparations and the cooking of starch and cereal dishes, and even the other foods. Guidelines on proper and safe handling food. So the food handlers, kitchen facilities, food preparation, cooking, and the safe temperature. So The food handlers must undergo the training on food safety and obtain the medical certificates from the local, provincial, city, municipal health office, and observe the proper hand washing technique and wear complete cooking outfit and use disposable gloves for direct food contact. So dapat po lahat ng mga food handlers ay mag-undergo ng training on the food safety. Ano po? And of course, magkaroon din sila ng medical certificates from the local or municipal health office. Siyempre, always observe proper hand washing technique. Okay. Sa proper hand washing techniques po ba, how many minutes ba dapat? Minutes ba? Seconds? Or hours ba? Kung paano tayo maghugas ng kamay? Yes, right. It is just only a second. Sabi nga, let's sing a happy birthday to you para makuha natin yung proper hand washing technique. Ano po? Yung complete. And of course, kapag tayo po ay halimbawa ay maghahawak ng isang mga ingredients, we always use the disposable gloves. Ano po? And of course, we have to wear a PPE, the personal protective equipment or the proper outfit. So let us now move to learning outcomes 3, the present starch and cereal dishes. So we have the techniques in preparing pasta before plating. Pasta is best if cooked and served immediately, and try to cook pasta upon order. Kapag lang nag-order, then we're going to cook the pasta. So that is the best techniques to do. If pasta is to be served immediately, so just drain and do not rinse in cold. Yeah. And if pasta is to be used cold in salad, it is ready to be incorporated in the recipe as soon it is or as it has cooled. I mean. If pasta is to be held, toss gently. So toss, ganyan po pagtotoss. Toss gently with a small amount of oil to keep it from sticking. So yan, para hindi sila mag-stick together. That's why we put some oil on the pasta. Reminder, we are not putting an oil while we are boiling, the pasta. Hindi tayo naglalagay ng oil dun po, directly to the water. Kasi po hindi that is not the proper. So we put some oil after po nating ahunin o after maluto ng pasta. The reason is to keep it from sticking para hindi siya mag-stick together. And another one is measure portions into mounds of tray. Cover with plastic film and refrigerate until service time. And to serve, place the desired number of portions in a china cup and immerse in simmering water to reheat, drain and add the sauce. So these are some plating and presenting pasta dishes. So ito po yung nakuha ko lang sa ating Google search. So yan. Yan po yung mga platings and presenting how we are going to present our pasta dishes. So ganyan lang po. So when we are serving, just only good for one person only. Ano po, hindi ganun sobrang kadami naman kapag ikaw ay magsaserve. Okay. So we have a sample recipe for baked lasagna. So nakita ko lang po ito sa Google. So ito po yung from the love for Haitian food. Okay. So ito po siya yung simple recipe for the baked lasagna. So yan po, meron siyang lasagna noodles, 1.3 pounds pack of ground turkey o kaya kung wala kang turkey, ground pork is fine. And we have a 14.5 ounces of crushed tomatoes with toasted garlic. So pwede naman kung wala ka pong crushed tomatoes, mag-chop ka na lang po ng tomatoes. Pwede naman yon. And a jar of tomato basil sauce, ayan, and a 6 to 8 garlic cloves. Okay. So yan lang po, that is a simple recipe for the baked lasagna. And how to make homemade pasta. So ito po nakuha ko din laang sa Google, sa site ni Hunger Thirst Play. So ito po yung kanyang how are we going to make a homemade pasta. So ito na po yung pagkakasunod-sunod. So you need to put or place a flour and a mound on a flat surface and make a well for the egg. So maglagay ka ng flour, then maglagay ano ka ng well para doon mo ilalagay yung eggs. Ayan. Then i-whisk mo siya. Ayan. And then after whisking until magsagi siya yung dough niya that comes together. So ined mo lang siya, magni-knead ka for only 5 minutes until the dough becomes smooth. And then after becoming smooth, so i-form mo na siya into ball and then cover and then rest it for 30 minutes. Kasi nagra-rise siya. And then after 30 minutes of resting, so pwede mo na siyang i-flatten and then i-cut mo na siya into a desired shape. Kung ano pa yung desired shapes mo. Pwede fettuccine, pwede pong halimbawa ay yung spaghetti ano lang, yan. Bahala po kayo. Gusto mo bow tie, yan. Ano po. So that is how homemade pasta is going, the process, I mean. So let us now move to how are we going to store the starch and cereal dishes. So in here, in storing starch and cereal dishes, the proper storage of food is very crucial in keeping food safe because the manner and temperature of storage will affect the food susceptibility to bacterial growth, yan, and other contaminants and infestation. Storing food will not improve its quality, but it will only delay the rate of deterioration. And thus, the proper period of storage should also be observed. So, yan. So, the reason is, para po hindi makontaminate yung ating pagkain. That's why we have to do or to properly store our food. So the FIFO means first in, first out is in the storing of food. So this FIFO rule is very important because it is giving a long time method in keeping your food or your ingredients. Ano? So ibig sabihin, where the first food stored, it should be the first food to be out from the storage. It is high time to make it a habit or put into a practice. Write the expiry date, the date received, and the date of storage of the food package, and regularly check the expiration date because it is very important to check all those expiration date. Okay. And of course, you have to put some labels, ano po, para po hindi ka malilito kung ano yung na first in and first out mo. And how are we going to store the pasta noodles? So the pasta is stored in that is an airtight containers. And the pasta noodles are usually sold dry at this grocery store. Yes, allowing you to store them with the other staples in your pantry. The dry noodles have a long storage life when properly packed, and improper storage causes the pasta to become moist. Ayan, nasisira na siya, which leads to mildew. And even without moisture, pasta can become stale if it is not stored correctly. And the proper storage ensures your pasta to always taste its best. So in a dry pasta, it should be remove the pasta from the store packaging if the noodles come in a box or other non-airtight container. Ayan. And then also you have to place the noodles in a sealable plastic bag or other container that closes tightly. And for long noodles, such as the spaghetti, it is used a tall plastic storage container because it is long or tall. Seal the bag or screw the lid or tightly store the pasta in a cool. And then the dry pasta store indefinitely but should be used within 2 years to prevent the loss of flavor. And then store dried eggs noodles for up to 6 months. And also pasta need to not to be refrigerated. Ano po? Not to be refrigerated because it can be stored on the shelf in an airtight container in a dry area that is not exposed to extreme temperature. And the dried pasta can be stored indefinitely and still be safe to eat. But the USDA recommends storing dried pasta for no more than 2 years to obtain the best quality. So up to 2 years lang po para po ma-obtain pa rin o makuha pa rin natin yung quality. Ano, magstay pa rin po yung quality ng pasta. Because some manufacturers will stamp their packages with a best if used by date, which indicates that the flavor, the color, and the nutritional value may be effective if used beyond that date. Yeah. So how about the cooked pasta? Pour the noodles into a colander, allow as much as moisture as possible to drain, and noodles left in standing water become overly soft and mushy. Sprinkle a 1 teaspoon salad oil over the noodles and toss the pasta so the noodles are evenly coated in the oil, and the salad oil prevents the pasta from sticking together. And place the pasta in a tight sealed container and then store in refrigerator for 3 to 5 days only. And cooked pasta can be stored unsauced, wala siyang sauce, basta siya ay yung pasta lang, in an airtight container and refrigerate it for 4 to 5 days. The sauce should be refrigerated separately from the pasta, and this can be stored for 6 to 7 days. So this is to prevent the pasta from soaking up too much flavor and oil from the sauce, which causes the taste of pasta to be drowned out. So yeah. So pag mag-store po kayo ng pasta and the sauces, so dapat po ay magkahiwalay sila. So usually wag niyo muna isasama yung sauce dun sa pasta para po if there's a left over o natira, so you can store it from your fridge. And if the pasta is stored together with the sauce, it should be eaten within 1 to 2 days only kasi po para po to avoid or to limit the amount of sauce that is absorb. If cooked pasta is not going to be used within the suggested time period, it should be frozen and then it can be stored for approximately 3 months. The frozen cooked pasta should be stored in the refrigerator and not on the kitchen counter. And to store the cooked pasta as you formally or normally would, and then rinse with the cold water and allow it to drain well. Add a small amount of oil or olive oil or butter to prevent pasta from clumping together while it is stored, and use only enough oil or butter to lightly coat the pasta. And to refrigerate, place the pasta in an airtight plastic bag or an airtight container and place in the refrigerator. Then place in an airtight plastic freezer bag and press out as much excess air as possible and place in the freezer. So kung kayo na may mag-i-store ng sauce pasta, eat within 1 to 2 days only. Ano po, to prevent from absorbing too much sauces. And when refrigerating or freezing the cooked pasta, be sure to eat that it is stored in a well-sealed container so that it does not absorb any odor. Ano po? Then the cooked lasagna and baked pasta dishes can be refrigerated or frozen in the same manner as plain cooked pasta. And the lasagna and the casserole should be first cut into individual serving places before placing them in a sealed bag or container, because this will make it easier when reheating. So if you have an entire lasagna or pasta dish to refrigerate or freeze, it can be left in the baking dish tightly covered. So yan po. And then the lasagna and baked pasta dishes can be refrigerated for only 3 to 4 days only, or they can be placed in a freezer and kept for approximately 3 months. And if frozen, the pasta should be thawed in a refrigerator and not in the kitchen counter. So we have the fresh pasta. So the fresh pasta should ideally be used in the same days as manufactured, because this is not always possible. But if it is used within the next 2 days, it will give adequate results. So after this, it tends to crack through excess drying, and it must be stored. Keep it well covered in the fridge to minimize the risk of this happening. And then the frozen filled pasta will keep for up to 3 months. And if held in a 18 degrees Celsius or lower. And then the fresh pasta can be stored in a refrigerator for only 2 to 3 days. Tapos po, if the pasta is not to be used within that time, it can be frozen and stored sa freezer natin for 2 to 3 months. Then kapag homemade pasta naman, pwede naman natin siyang i-store sa ref for 1 to 2 days o kaya po ay 2 to 3 months naman pag frozen. Ipo-frozen natin. And the homemade pasta can also be allowed to dry thoroughly and then placed in a plastic bag or a airtight container. The length of time it will take to dry will vary depending on the type of pasta and its size, shape, and thickness. If dried completely, the pasta can be stored in a cool, dry place for a couple of months. And if you are going to use the pasta on the same day as it is made, you can allow it to dry on a clean towel for a couple of hours before you cook it, unless it is stuffed pasta. And the stuffed pasta, such as ravioli, should be cooked within half an hour, and otherwise it will begin to discolor and become damp. Yan po. If it is not going to be cooked immediately, it should be placed or lightly floured towel that is placed in a baking sheet, sprinkled lightly with the flour, and then placed in the freezer. And once they are frozen, they can be stored in a freezer-proof bag or wrap and then placed in the freezer for 8 to 9 months. Ayan. And then the frozen pasta po does not have to be thawed before it is cooked. Just place on the frozen pasta into a boiling water and reheat it, and then it will need to cook a little longer than unfrozen pasta. So we have the tips and warnings. So store pasta sauce separate from the noodles, otherwise the noodles will become mushy. You can freeze cook pasta, but it may be too soft once thawed, and use frozen pasta in baked dishes so the softer texture is not noticeable. And we have the example po for the pasta dish. So ito po yung example natin. So nakuha lang po natin to sa internet. The lobster fra diavolo. Ayan. So ito naman po yung kakaibang pasta. Very nice, diba? Ito din po. Ayan. Okay. So since that we have already done with our discussion, guys. So I hope that you learned something today. So as your teacher, guys, if your teacher are going to give you a individual home laboratory for the cooking pasta. So it depends to your teacher po kung paano niya kayo bibigyan ng activity for the prepare pasta. Prepare and present the cereal and starch dishes. Okay, guys. So see you next time. Thank you for listening. See you soon. Bye. Not yet.